daytime. Hey everyone, Divi here. So basically the reason why I'm shooting in the daytime this time is because, well, usually I like to shoot my videos at nighttime because at nighttime I feel like I have total control over the lighting because there's no sun, there's nothing coming into conflict with the lighting. I'm able to control it however I want, so I prefer to shoot all of my videos at nighttime. But unfortunately last night I had plans, and so that caused me to watch Gotham very late at night, and it was already time for me to fall asleep because I was starting to knock out. So I was forced to push my review to Wednesday morning, which is right now. So that's why I'm shooting this in the daytime. So hopefully this comes across on camera. I'm taking a look at my viewfinder right now, and so far it looks pretty good, but only the computer screen will be able to tell that because sometimes that looks different from what I see here in the viewfinder. So hopefully it comes across well and you guys still get the same effect from my videos, which is, oh, when is this guy gonna shut up and get to the review, which I'm going to do right now. And of course I am back to review Gotham, and this time it is for the 7th episode in season 1 entitled Penguin's Umbrella. Cue Rihanna jokes right here. And even though on paper it sounds silly, in fact when I found out that the title for this episode was Penguin's Umbrella, I'm like, wow, really? I mean, you could just when you thought you couldn't top Spirit of the Goat, you have to go and be like, Penguin's Umbrella. But as silly as it sounds on paper, it makes sense because it is in this episode where we finally figure out the inner workings of Penguin's scheming plan and how great it was to finally figure it out. But before I get into that, let's focus on where this episode starts off, which is right where we left off from the previous episode. Penguin reveals himself in the police station, thus revealing to Bullock as well as the MCU that Penguin was alive this whole time. And at the beginning of this episode we find out that Fish Mooney figures out that Penguin is still alive, and I'm like, oh man, this is getting good, this is getting juicy. And that what led to what I really did like about this episode the most, even though there's another part of the episode that I really did enjoy. In fact, possibly more so because it hardly had anything bad about it that I felt hindered the plot, or at least that particular subplot. But the main gist of it all was Gordon trying to get things moving and make sure that he's able to arrest the right people while at the same time not dying after the events of the previous episode, because now the people that he wronged, especially Fish Mooney, who he said he was going to kill Bullock, and Falcone, are after him because they figure out Penguin is still alive, so he didn't do his job. So obviously they're going to come and try to kill him, or try to persuade him to actually kill Penguin this time. And so he's trying to figure out, okay, I got to get Barbara out of town, which he does. I got to try to find arrest warrant so I can take down the mayor along with Falcone, which he almost does. And I gotta get Bullock on my side because right when he figures out, he's like, okay, now I gotta kill you. I thought we were buddies, but now I gotta do what needs to be done. But fortunately by the end he changes his mind and decides to team up with them in the apprehension of the mayor and Falcone. And just this entire thing was, I can't believe I'm saying this coming out of Gotham, but it was actually quite unpredictable. I didn't see what was going to happen in the next scene because there were certain moments that kind of caught me off guard. I really liked that the MCU is now on Gordon's side because they know that, yeah, we just made a huge mistake, especially that face that Montoya had at the end of last week's episode. So she knew that she was going to have to team up with Gordon and be like, look, I'm sorry. This was a huge mistake on my part. Let me try to make it up to you by helping you out. And so they do so by not only rescuing him from a precarious situation that involved the introduction of Victor Zsasz. Victor Zsasz finally gets introduced into Gotham, and my first impression was that, oh my god, what have they done with Zsasz? Because he just doesn't look very Zsassy. But the more I thought about it, the more I grew to like it, because even though he doesn't look like the Zsasz that people would usually be accustomed to seeing, whether it be in the comics or even the Arkham games or any other interpretation of Zsasz from different incarnations of the character, you have to keep in mind that this is prior to Batman. Alright, this is years upon years, like almost 25 years before Batman comes into Gotham City. So it makes sense that Zsasz is not the serial killer that he is later on down the line. He's this hitman who starts to develop a psychopathic nature by etching in the scars on his forearm. At first I'm like, okay, where are the scars? And finally he kills that one cop, revealing the scars on his forearm, and he says number 28. And it makes sense for him to be at number 28 instead of having his whole body covered in scars, because he's just starting out. So it makes sense that not only is he just a little bit more organized than what he's going to be later on in the future, but also to be at a very early number in terms of his kill count. So after a while, it grew. This interpretation of Zsasz grew on me. What didn't grow on me so much, and I don't know why, because there were other moments in the season so far where they nailed a good balance of how to depict Gotham, and that is a mixture of the realism of Christopher Nolan's version of Gotham, while at the same time the campiness of something out of the versions of Tim Burton or even Joel Schumacher. I felt like they went just a little too Schumacher-ish in this episode at the beginning, with the music they kept playing whenever Penguin showed up, or Zsasz being with those two girls that are just inappropriately dressed for the jobs they're given. I mean, I'm not necessarily complaining because they were rather attractive, but it just practically doesn't make sense for them to look that way when they're supposed to be hit women. So after Montoya and Alan save Gordon from the situation, Gordon then decides to have them right their wrong, correct their mistakes by having them take over the Wayne murder case, because he's obviously going to have to get out of town, because he's just not going to be able to do this while Falcone and Mooney are right over his shoulder, and he has to continuously look back. So obviously he's not going to be able to do the case, so he goes to Bruce Wayne and says, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to do this, even though I promised you, which led to my first complaint, or my first nitpick, because I have one formal complaint about this episode that kind of kept it from being a really great episode, but it also came with a handful of nitpicks, and one of them would be that scene where Bruce hugs Gordon. I felt like that didn't feel earned, because it was supposed to be a moment of compassion, of a father-son type of relationship here, because the show tries to make it seem like Gordon has been looking out after Bruce after the death of his parents, but it didn't really feel earned, because up until this point, Gordon, all he really did in terms of, in relation to Bruce would be to come over and be like, okay, what information do you got for me? And then end it with, okay, look, everything's going to be okay, you're just a kid. In short, you can kind of make the argument that those things that he would say to Bruce were fatherly things for him to say, but he didn't really spend enough time with him so that it felt justified that Bruce would hug him and be like, okay, I forgive you, you're cool. I don't know, it just didn't feel earned to me. What did feel earned was my opinion of Alfred being a badass, because that scene where Alfred just comes out of nowhere with Alan and his arm twisted behind him, I'm like, wow, Alfred is a badass, and I'm really digging this interpretation of Alfred so far, and I'm hoping we see more bits of him like that later on down the line, because I really like the twist of Alfred. Like I said, I believe in the comics we've had versions of Alfred like this in the past, where he's much more tough as nails rather than the soft and easygoing Alfred that we've seen in previous incarnations, mainly in the animated series or even in the Nolan universe. But I really like this version of Alfred we're seeing so far, and I think that scene of him having Alan's arm twisted behind him was a nice little touch. But then Gordon decides to take it upon himself to arrest Falcone and Mayer for obstruction of justice and whatnot. And at his doorstep, who shows up? Bullock, saying, you know what, I'm going to join you, fuck it. And I dig this because I've grown to like Bullock's character over the course of the season, especially after last week's episode, which really fleshed him out. But I wish we could have, and this is another nitpick of mine, similar to the whole thing with Bruce and wanting to see more of him and Gordon generate a sense of camaraderie and bonding so that hug felt genuine. I wish there would have been a scene where Bullock would come to his senses and actually transform his opinion from wanting to kill Gordon and save his own skin to saying, you know what, they're probably going to kill me anyway, I might as well team up with the good guys, just like he says at the end of this episode. I wish we could have seen at least one scene of him developing that consciousness, as opposed to just having him at the beginning and then show up at the end being like, okay, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to be with you, but before we do, I'm going to go and sleep with this lady in your bedroom. Which led to, like I said, some emotion out of Gordon, which is one of my favorite things about this episode, is that I actually was rooting for Gordon to come out on top, because he showed moments of saying, hey, I know I'm screwed, so I'm just gonna go out and guns blazing, because I feel like I have this pressure lifted off my shoulders, so therefore I'm gonna smile a little bit more, and that made me connect with Gordon a little bit more and made me root for him. So he goes on to arrest the mayor, and therefore the mayor leads him to Falcone, and it looked like it was building up to something great, because he was loading up guns, and this leads to my next nitpick, which is that even though the episode showed him loading up all these bullets, and you got Gordon and Bullock coming in with their guns, it looked like they were going in Hot Fuzz style, and they're just going to shoot up the place, and it's going to lead up to something really awesome. Nothing happened. Alright, they didn't even use the guns. All that firepower they went in with, they didn't even use it, and I was very let down. And I guess budget-wise, it makes sense, because we had that shootout earlier in the police station, which, I gotta be honest, I thought was neat and kind of tense at parts, but the only thing that took me out of it was Zsasz telling the officers to just get out, and they all get out, and I'm like, are you serious? Are you serious? Up until this point and I say that phrase an awful lot, up until this point, I'm sorry about that, but to this point, I was led to believe that the cops, as corrupt as they are, they had at least a limit to where they'll be like, okay, we're not going to take this shit no more. Or I was giving them the benefit of the doubt. But this just made me go, oh, come on, guys. Really, what's the point of a police force at this point? Because this guy, this hitman just says, could you get out? Please? And the officers they just head out like nothing. I'm like, really? I mean, sure, they can make up some excuse saying, hey, if we look the other way, everything could go well, and as corrupt as it is, things will work out in the end. I mean, it's a similar theme to a recent episode that premiered over the weekend from this really popular show. If you guys haven't seen my review, check it out. But I was like, really? Okay, I gotta be honest. I've lost faith in these cops, and that I've taken the faith out of these cops and have put it more on Gordon, because he's the only honest man in town. And the main reason why there is no gunfight is the main complaint I have with this episode, and that is Barbara. Oh, Barbara, really? I'm trying to like you, but you just did something that put you into the category of stupid, because Gordon told you to not come back to Gotham. This is for your own good. This is for your own safety. And what do? You come back to Gotham and you put Gordon in danger. This all could have been resolved a little easier, but you went ahead. Your decision went ahead and gave Falcone the upper moral hand, and that made Gordon surrender himself just for your safety. So, didn't like it that Barbara came back, because that was a very stupid move on her part and jeopardized the entire mission. And then maybe we would have ended up with a really cool gunfight, but instead, Barbara just had to come in and screw it all up. I'm sorry, but bad move on the writer's part to have Barbara come back, and it kind of insulted the intelligence of the character. Now, intertwined with all this is the main reason why this episode is called Penguin's Umbrella. And once again, everything that involved the Penguin, I actually really loved in this episode. And unlike the entire plot with Gordon, I can finally hard anything wrong with it. Even Fish Mooney's involvement in this episode was well appreciated, because it put things into motion. And basically, in this entire episode, in relation to Penguin, we find out that not only is he capable of, well, actually, the main thing is that he's able to manipulate so many things to his liking, that this is the character trait that's going to make him one of the most formidable villains for Batman. And I gotta be honest, Penguin was never never my favorite Batman villain. In fact, he was one of my least favorite Batman villains because I never really saw anything that attracted me to the character that made me go, wow, this guy's bad. It's just as much as Two-Face or the Joker. But this version of Penguin, not only because of Robin Lord Taylor's performance, but also the way that he's being written, or whoever's handling him, is doing a really good job at selling me the character and making me favor him over any other villain that we might have in the series so far, because everything with him to this from the beginning of the season to this episode has been great, at least most of it. And in this episode, we learned that not only is he able to buy off people and know how criminals work, and because there's no loyalty in criminals, he's able to buy these people off, and he's able to kill off that one guy that never liked him. And with that, he was able to manipulate things and manipulate people into thinking certain things. And that twist with him at the end, revealing that he was actually Falcone's snitch the entire time, and he was able to infiltrate the whole thing from the inside. And he was only licking Maroni's shoes only to come back to Falcone and give him all the details. That was great. That I really did like that twist. And just so far, everything with Penguin has been great. And to see him starting to talk down, just not yet, because he's still just a little scared of Mooney, but seeing him actually call her fish, and seeing that he's developing a backbone towards Mooney, is just one step closer to him becoming that mob boss that we will later be scared of when Gotham truly goes down the gutter, and we will have no choice but to call upon the Batman for help. And remember when I said that him being a mama's boy is going to play into his psyche? Well, it kind of looked that way when he kills that one guy and he kisses him on the head, and the two guys are like, what the hell's he doing? I'm digging this. I'm digging the characteristics they're giving Penguin and the character that they're making him out to be. So overall, another solid episode from Gotham, a better episode than some of the weaker ones in the season so far, and definitely one that feels more like a mid-season finale, or at least a penultimate episode to the season finale. But it's only episode 7. We're not even halfway through the season, so it'll be kind of interesting to see where the writers take this from here on out. And sure, it kind of has me a little bit worried that we'll have yet more filler episodes that will have nothing to do with the main plot, because they have to extend this over 22 episodes as opposed to the original 16. But hopefully they take it in a direction where they can do the same thing that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did, which is where their first few episodes were kind of troublesome because they were disconnected, but fortunately they had a plot device that they were able to take and stretch out and develop a sense of tension and drama and really flesh these characters out. And hopefully they'll take a page from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s handbook and be able to develop a good show along with it. So I'm going to give Penguin's Umbrella a solid 8 out of 10. I thought it was a solid episode, and hopefully a step in the right direction for the series. And so thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys thought of the newest episode of Gotham, and I'll see you guys next time.